So this is the Samson story. So basically, I was watching an animated video, right? I already know some things about the Samson story already, right? But I was watching a video, an animated video, and it was just saying like it was a narrator. The narrator of the story was saying how, there was a Nazarite young man who was born into the world to this parent, to these parents, whatever. And he wasn't supposed to put that down, please.
Put that down?
Yes. He wasn't supposed to cut his hair. He wasn't supposed to drink, right? He wasn't supposed to marry foreign women. He wasn't supposed to touch dead flesh, right? And it was basically just saying that Samson did all of these things. He touched flesh, right? Because when he killed the lion, he touched dead flesh, and then he even touched it again when he went to get the honey out of the lion's body, right? And so the narrator was saying how Samson wasn't following the things that God wanted him to do, right? Or following God's rules, right? As a Nazarite and as a child of God, who God wanted him to be. So the narrator was saying he wasn't following God's rules. Now, I don't know if the narrator was saying it as like, to the eyes of others, Samson wasn't following the rules. Because every time I hear Samson's story, whether if it's a preacher preaching it, it sounds like people are trying to say that Samson wasn't supposed to marry Delilah. But I believe from even since back in the days when I first got saved, when I used to listen to the Samson and Delilah story, my heart always knew that Samson's marriage, even though technically with the Nazarite vow and according to God and how he ordains things, we as children of God shouldn't marry foreign women, right? Israelites shouldn't marry foreign men, right? Even with King Solomon, we know that he had like 1,000 foreign wives, right? And they ended up turning his heart towards, or he ended up serving their gods or worshiping them while still worshiping God. At the same time, in all of these instances, King Solomon, I don't believe King Solomon is considered as, I don't think King Solomon went to hell. Even though because he didn't fully turn away from God, right? But some stories in the Bible aren't fully finished, right? So certain things, we only have a bits and pieces of the story. I don't believe King Solomon is in hell because he followed after foreign gods. And I'm not saying that he was right for following after foreign gods, but God has mercy. And so I don't believe King Solomon is in hell, and I don't believe Samson is in hell, and I don't believe that Samson was wrong in marrying Delilah. I believe God was using all of that, right? So when preachers tell a story, and even that animated story, like I said, I don't know if they were coming from just a narration standpoint of technically he wasn't supposed to do these things, but he did these things, and God was using these things, right? Because when I think about Jesus, right? Jesus was a Nazarite, right? And to me, this is like an image, like how I said before, the Joseph situation when he was in a prison is like a foreshadowing of what Jesus Christ was going to do, right? Because Joseph, interpreted the dreams of the cupbearer who holds the wine and the baker who technically bakes bread, right? A baker is known for baking bread, right? And so Jesus was the bread and the wine, right? And so when I think of the Samson story, it was a foreshadowing also, because guess what? Samson was sent to deliver the people from the Philistines, right? And he was a Nazarite. He wasn't supposed to touch flesh. He wasn't supposed to cut his hair. He wasn't supposed to drink. He wasn't supposed to, marry foreign women. At the same time, he did all of these things. Jesus, a Nazarite, wasn't supposed to heal on the Sabbath. He was, you get me saying? All of these restrictions, all of these man-made rules. And it's not that God called Samson. He called him. He was called and chosen. God placed the Nazarite vow over Samson. But I believe what God was doing in that story, not because it's not a story, it's a real life. Sorry, I got a little bit of a headache, but it's not just a story, it's real life, right? It's a real life thing, meaning like the story of Samson is real. And so what I'm trying to say is, the same way Jesus was persecuted for healing on the Sabbath and doing certain things. Why is he sitting with sinners, right? And then even Jesus said, John came doing this and that, right? And I came doing this and that, and you called me a wine bibber, and you get what I'm saying? So they had, the Pharisaical people, all his people who were against him had so much to say. Or why don't the disciples wash their hands before they eat? Or why don't the disciples fast? And even Jesus came back with, well, while the bridegroom is here, they can fast after the bridegroom is gone. You get what I'm saying? Like, he was just letting them know, like, all of y'all rules and regulations, they are by the law, but God trumps the law. And so I believe Samson's story was a prerequisite, was a foreshadowing of what Jesus was coming to do. He was coming to abolish the law, right? He came to fulfill a law. So I'm not going to say it's totally, like people say, done away with. But I believe Christ came to abolish it. He came to fulfill it, and he came to abolish it. Because the things in the law was holding people back from their destiny. It was holding people back from getting healed. The restrictions. Oh, you can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do that. God is ruler over the Sabbath. He can do whatever he wants on the Sabbath. He came for the sinners, right? And so the Pharisaical people don't understand that. They didn't understand that. So they're looking at him. Oh, he's sitting amongst sinners. Do you know that woman is a whore? You're sitting amongst the whore. Like, Jesus came for the sinners, right? He didn't put his hands in all of that. He may have drank wine, but he didn't get his hands contaminated, right? And so what I'm saying is, I believe that Samson's story was a foreshadowing of what Jesus Christ was coming to do. Because in the animated story that I'm saying, it was pointing out how Samson did everything that he wasn't supposed to do, right? And again, I don't know if the narration was coming from a standpoint of, like, technically he wasn't doing what God wanted him to do, because he was going against all of the things that his birthright was about, right? His Nazirite birthright. So I don't know if they were coming from a standpoint of technically he wasn't supposed to do that, and then still saying that, but God was using him. I'm not sure, because I didn't listen to the whole thing. But I'm also coming with this story because when I have heard pastors talk about the Samson story, they talk about Samson like he wasn't being used by God, like he was a person who was just doing all types of heinous stuff, and it's like, based off of what I know from what I read in the past and what I know now, the sense inside of me, the wisdom inside of me always told me, no matter if, like I said, I haven't read the Samson story in a long time, but I listen to it sometimes, right? Or I watch it in a video or whatever. And so what I'm trying to get to is, every time I hear a pastor talk about it, it's like they're saying that Samson was just totally just doing all types of craziness and going against God. And I'm like, no. Why do pastors do that? Samson was being used by God to attack the Philistines. God needed him to be with Delilah, so that, you get what I'm saying? God was using all of these things for his glory. God was using Samson for his glory. And so what I'm trying to say is, it is a message in it, all right? How don't trust people and do what God told you to do. But the other message is in it, is that just as when Jesus came on the scene and everybody was telling him, oh, you can't do this, all of these restrictions, right? By the Nazirite birthright, Jesus and Samson wasn't supposed to do certain things. But God was showing through even Samson early on that, yes, you have the Nazirite vow. Yes, we have the law. But God is greater than the law. He gave it to us to keep us in, to keep us in order, right? But even the Bible says the law is for people who don't know God, right? But we know God. We worship him in spirit and truth. And so what I'm saying is God was showing even in Samson that he trumps the law. Because the law said, Samson, you can't drink wine. Samson, you can't touch a dead animal. You can't touch, you get what I'm saying? Samson did all of those things. But guess what? God was using that. God God knows what's going on in people's lives. He's ordering our steps. So through Samson killing the lion, and I think he also killed the bear, right? God was showing Samson his strength through all of that. So God was using all of that. God was ordering his steps in him killing the flesh and taking the honey and eating it out the lion. But the Nazarite vow said, oh, don't touch dead flesh, right? Jesus, oh, you're a Nazarite. Oh, you're son of God. Why are you sitting with sinners, right? And so it's the same thing with Samson. Samson was called a Nazarite by birth, but God was even showing through Samson that he's greater than the rules of the birthright, right? He's through what you were born into. He's greater than those things. He trumps those things. He's not saying that if you're not supposed to do something, don't do it. I mean, you get what I'm saying? He's not saying break rules and break laws. No. But he came to show people, even through Samson, right? That he is God over the Sabbath. He is God over the Nazarite vow. Because all of the things that Samson did, which I believe were ordained by God, which in turn helped him to fulfill what God needed him to fulfill by striking down all of the Philistines, right? But people to this day still make it seem like Samson was just far off. He was, and they make it seem like God casted him out or something. And it's like, no, Samson was being used by God, even in his seemingly disobedience. Because if he had not killed the lion, he would have been killed. Right? And he also wouldn't have known his strength, which showed him that he was capable of killing the Philistines, which was what God wanted him to do. So to the natural man who can't receive the spiritual things of God, they're looking like it as Samson was just all wrong, all messed up. And that's why even from back in the days, I used to get mad in my spirit. Like, why are people talking about Samson like that? Yes, this goes to show, hey, don't trust foreign women. Don't, it has a lot of lessons in it. But God was using all of that. He was ordering Samson's steps to show him his strength, to show him who he was, and to also show him that I know what you were born into because I created you. But I am ruler over all of that. And so even though you're not supposed to eat from flesh of an animal, of a dead animal, guess what? I'm going to use that to show you your strength so that I can show you that you can attack this Philistine camp. You get what I'm saying? And so had he not killed that lion, he might have not have known his strength. Had he not killed that bear, he might have not have known his strength. You get what I'm saying? And so people talk about Samson to this day like he was just totally not doing what the will of God was. And he totally did do the will of God. And I believe he's in heaven. He wasn't cast off by God. See, God uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. Like I said, known pastors be preaching like Samson was all in the wrong. Like he was just totally going astray from God. And I never, even when I was a new believer, even prior to me actually even being a believer, and I used to read the Bible or listen to the Bible, I always knew in my heart, even from back then, that Samson was doing what God told him to do, kill the Philistines. So why people are acting like he did something wrong? He didn't do anything wrong. His marriage to Delilah, although through the Nazarite vow it was forbidden, God needed him to do that because guess what? At the end, he ended up still killing all of the Philistines. So all of that was for God's glory. Samson didn't do anything wrong. Is it a message in the Samson story? Yes. Don't trust people. Don't tell people the secrets that God tell you. It's a lot of different things that we can glean from that story. But in all, Samson fulfilled totally what God called him to do. And so if you look at that for yourself, the Samson story and the Jesus story, you can see the very same similarities in how this was showing what God was coming to do, what Jesus was going to come on the scene to do. Because the same thing that they were saying about Samson, oh, he did this, he did that, he's not supposed to be doing that, he's a Nazarite. But God was using it for his glory. Same thing. Oh, Jesus, oh, he's sitting with sinners. Oh, he's healing on the Sabbath. His disciples don't wash their hands. Oh, why are they not fasting? Why, all of this stuff. And guess what? God wanted to show even from back then that he is Lord over everything. The Sabbath, the Nazarite vow, he's Lord over. He's Lord over everything. And so I urge you to go read that story. I'm going to even read it again for myself. But like I said, even without rereading it and just going off of the knowledge from back then when I used to read it, I still feel in my heart through the Spirit that the way people be talking about Samson is like he did something wrong. And that's causing confusion to the body of Christ. It even caused me a little bit confusion because I'm like, wait a minute, I thought Samson was doing what God told him to do. But every time I listen to a Samson story, they make Samson out to be a bad person. I'm just like, he was doing what God needed him to do to fulfill the purpose to kill off the Philistines. So that's all I have to say for today. God bless you. God keep you. God make his face to shine upon you. God give you peace in the name of Jesus.